So Sony has still not revealed those 15 games that everyone is waiting to be revealed. So I decide to do my own definitive list of 15 games. In my first video, I just kind of talk about the possibilities of those games, and now I have just made the list that I think, well, it's the list of my personal favorites that I would want to see on the console. So let's get to the list. Many of these are the games that I already talked about on my first video, but there are a couple of games that I didn't mention before. And the first pick is Metal Gear Solid, just like in my first video. And I don't think I have to say anything about that. It just have to be there. No question about that. And my second pick, Resident Evil. And I decide to choose Resident Evil 1 instead of Nemesis because, yeah, it started it all. So Resident Evil 1 is, I think, better choice than the Nemesis. And my third pick is Tomb Raider 1 also, because that game also started it all. The more open world exploring adventure, action adventure. And my fourth pick is Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. And I haven't seen many. I've watched on the internet so many lists of people doing what they want to see on the console, and I haven't seen many wanting Soul Reaver, and I think that's kind of weird because that game was pretty huge and I also loved it to death. That was so good, and I'll definitely want to see Soul Reaver. And my fifth pick is Medieval, and I think Medieval is almost 100% sure to be in there because it's published by Sony, and I'm pretty sure the Sony published games will be well presented on the console. And plus, Medieval is getting a full remake next year. So, what better time to show what the original Medieval was all about? And also, I love that fucking game so much. And my sixth pick is Wipeout 3. I'm a fucking huge fan of Wipeout series, and I'll tell you why I decided to choose Wipeout 3 over Wipeout 2097. I mean, 2097 is maybe a bigger fan favorite, but Wipeout 3 has split screen multiplayer, and what I remember of Wipeout 2097 didn't have a split screen multiplayer. I think it had a local, hook up to PlayStation 1s together, and then you have a multiplayer, if I remember right. So, yeah, because there has to be at least, I think, 5 or 6 multiplayer games. That's why I decided to include Wipeout 3, because it has the split screen multiplayer also. And my next pick is quite old classic from the early era of PS1 games, Destruction Derby 2. I mean, that game also is very nostalgic to me. I've played it so much in the past, and I freaking love that game. And yeah, I don't. There might be some issues getting it re-released, but I don't know about that for sure. So I'm just hoping Destruction Derby 2 will make it. That would be awesome. And my next pick is, of course, Crash Team Racing, the best multiplayer game on PS1, I think. And the single player was also good. And yeah, I don't think I have to say anything more about this CTR. And the other Crash game, my next on the list, Crash Bandicoot 1. And in my first video, I talked about that I would want to see Crash 3, but I also said I think that Crash 1 will probably make it on the console. So yeah, Crash Bandicoot 1 for sure. And next on the list, very, very early games on the PlayStation, Loaded. And that was my pick because it also has a multiplayer, and it was freaking hilarious playing multiplayer. I really didn't play it on single player, and I just loved top-down shooters, and that game was fucking funny as hell. So yeah, I think Loaded is a big possibility to be there, but we'll see. I hope so. The next one is Silent Hill. Yeah, one of those most important games for me that I really want to see in this console, or otherwise I will be hugely disappointed, I must say. And the next one is Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I have not played it. Yeah, I'm a weirdo. You could say that, but yeah, I would definitely like to see that game and play it for myself also, because I know that game is really good. Everyone just praises that game. So yeah, I think if Konami decides to support this console, there will be Castlevania, and I think the other game is Silent Hill. published by Konami. And there are 3 more left now on my list, and the next one is Twisted Metal 2. I was introduced to the series on PlayStation 2's Twisted Metal Black that I really liked. By that time, I've not played any of those PlayStation 1 era Twisted Metal games. I know there are 4 or even 5. I think 4 Twisted Metal games on PlayStation 1, and what I have seen on internet, Twisted Metal 2 seems to be the fan favorites. And it also has a split screen multiplayer. Of course, single player too. Yeah, it has a split screen multiplayer, so Twisted Metal 2 would be a great addition for sure. And then the next one, Spyro the Dragon, the first one, I think. And that also because that game is Sony published. And like I said, there will be quite many Sony published games. Because I think that's just quite logical. So Spyro the Dragon will probably be there, and I would also want to see that game. Yeah. And the last one on my list is Driver. And back in the day when the Driver game was just released, I was playing it at one store that it was displayed on there, and I was blown away. I mean, the graphics and the driving was just so good. It felt so good in that game. Just the controls and driving mechanics at that time. And I bought it almost immediately, and I really loved that game, but it was punishingly hard on the last missions. And those cops were relentless. I mean, that game was hard. That game was definitely hard. So, yeah, those were my 15 picks for those remaining games. And we'll just have to wait for the official list. But if I say so myself, I think many of these picks are very logical picks for the console. So I think many of these games will make it. I have a feeling. And I hope that many of these mentioned games will make it. And okay, couple of honorable mentions. I was thinking about Fear Effect. I mean, that game was, for me, it was like a sleeper hit. I didn't really know what to expect. I just saw that game on the shelves, and I think, oh, this looks so fucking cool. The graphic style, it's very cinematic looking, and I absolutely loved that game. But I don't think that game was huge enough to maybe make it to the PlayStation Classic console, but it's not impossible. So I would definitely want to see Fear Effect. And on my first video, I also talked about Nightmare Creatures 1, and that's my other honorable mention. That might, there's a little possibility that that game will make it, because it was published by Sony. But the other problem is that it was made by Callisto Entertainment, and that company's long gone. It's long gone. So there might be problem, because I don't know who owns the rights to Nightmare Creatures like today. I have no clue. I think I've heard it can be Ubisoft, but I really don't know who owns the rights to that. So yeah, those two honorable mentions. I had to talk about also. Fear Effect and Nightmare Creatures. So it's just waiting game now. I'm so impatient waiting for that official list, but like I said on my quick update video, that I will be analyzing and speculating those official choices by Sony once those games are revealed to us fans. So I hope this video was fun for someone to watch. And I'll see you once we know those 15 games. So I'll get back. I'll be back. Yes. Bye.